Mike McCool here in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is, I was going to say town manager, but...
Formerly the interim town manager.
Formerly, and he got such a long title. Matt Tederick. Matt's here with us. He's got one more day on the payroll, I think, and then he'll be back into private life. And so what we thought we would do is get Matt in here and have a little conversation of, you know, the good and the bad and things that happened in the last, actually about 18 months, something like that. And so he's gone from interim mayor to interim town manager. And you know, so we just want to kind of have a conversation and just see how this started, because it was kind of a surprise. You came out of what we call the wealth management industry, I take it, and to get into this, and all of a sudden you're interim mayor. And And so what did you think when that first happened?
Yeah, well, I got the phone call Memorial Day weekend from a council member who called me and asked me if I would consider serving as interim mayor. And my initial reaction was, heck no, probably not so polite. And I said, surely there's other people. And I mentioned off some names. And they said they reached out to those individuals. Because as you may recall, Hollis Tharp stepped down as mayor because of the pending indictment. And Bill Seelock stepped up as vice mayor to serve in a month or two meeting for meetings. And he decided that he did not want to be the interim mayor because he didn't want to lose his vote on council. So when I was called, I've rattled off some other names, and really it was if you recall back in that time period in June of 2019, there was still a lot of turmoil with regards to the EDA and the scandal. It was still very, very fresh and raw. Candidly, I had been watching from the sidelines and had noticed that the town council was kind of spinning its wheels, didn't really set a clear path and direction for how they wanted to address the issue. So we had some of those conversations, and frankly, I agreed right there on the phone. And I'll never forget, my wife was in a porch reading a book, and I paused and I had to think how I was going to approach her to let her know.
She said, "You did what?"
What I said was, "What do you think if?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Are you kidding? No." And I said, "She goes, you already did, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, I did." So, but I don't.
Sounds like my wife. That's what she does. You did what? You already did it.
Yeah,
didn't
exactly.
You?
But it was really it sounds perhaps corny, and I know some of my detractors may think it's not sincere, but sincerely, I saw it as a sense of duty at that time, and I knew what I knew I could run a meeting. I knew that I could build consensus where needed, and I think we hit the ground running in June. Frankly, we got a lot accomplished when I was interim mayor, and then I'll never forget. It was October 8th at 9:00 in the morning. I received an email popped up on my computer screen, and I had planned. Gene T-Walt was running for mayor at the time, and let's see, he was challenged? Was he challenged or unopposed? I think he was unopposed.
He was unopposed.
Unopposed, and so I had already my plans ready to start in November of 2019. I was going to be out as interim mayor, and Gene was going to come in and be the mayor, and I received an email that the acting town manager put in his 30-day notice, and I saw my words. So within 30 seconds, I picked up the phone, and I called Joe and said, "Joe, please tell me it wasn't something I said or did."
Right.
And he says, "No, Matt, sincerely, I have a great opportunity back in the energy sector that I just can't pass up. I want to retire the next 4 years in that field, and so I'm putting my 30-day notice in." So that's how, and then it was determined, okay, who's going to fill in. So the next morning I met with Joe and said, who can step up and serve as interim manager until the town council can hire someone. And I mentioned a couple of names, and they said they didn't want to do it. And so I presented that to council as the mayor, and they went to executive session and talked, and they asked me to consider serving in that role. And based upon the projects that were already in place, I had a good working knowledge of the budget, had a good working knowledge of the projects. So it made good sense at the time. You got to remember, this is pre-COVID.
Right.
It was only supposed to be for, 3 months, 4 months before you hire a manager. And then lo and behold, March 12th, the executive order comes down with the pandemic. So that threw a major major wrinkle into things.
Right, right.
So
one of the comments that Bill Seelock mentioned was the ability to get a plan and work a plan and organize about the interim town manager.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that really lacks in a lot of people in some sort of leadership role. Of course, when you're out in the front, that's where the Indians can shoot you with the arrows.
Yeah, sure.
So
yeah, of course.
you take a lot of flack. I know you've taken a lot of flack. Well, everyone in the position has, maybe a little more so you have, because of all the other situations that kind of, go down on it. And I don't think, and again, we talked about this with Bill, people don't really realize the amount of work it takes to be a mayor or to be on the council or to be a town manager. And I think that until you walk in those shoes, you really can't, to do that. So.
Yeah, and at the same time, it takes a lot of time and effort, but it's also very extremely rewarding.
It is.
I think look back at Bill Seelock as interim mayor. Bill was the vice mayor, and so he and I worked closely together, and it was Bill and I, through mutual dialogue and consensus, is where we pushed to have a goal setting session.
Right, he mentioned that,
which was really important because, again, the first meeting I had with Joe Waltz as the interim mayor, and Joe was the town manager. First meeting, I think the first thing I said to him was, Joe, what can I do for you as mayor? What do you feel needs to be done? And without skipping a beat, he said, I need better direction from council.
Exactly.
Which meant, he goes, far too often we talk about things, but we never really get anything done. I never get clear direction from the town council, and so we made that change for sure. The last half of that year.
Right. If you don't write it down and make it a goal, it's just a dream.
That's right.
And nothing really happens if you don't have a plan.
I have a saying that action without results is a waste of time.
It is a complete waste of time. And that's some of the things that I can remember looking at the agendas in previous administrations.
Right.
And goals and objectives are always listed on the agenda on the work sessions, but never got discussed. It was always, well, we'll do that later. We'll do it later. Mm-hmm. It had just been skipped over so many years that there was no planning. One thing I mentioned to Bill was, as a mayor and as council in general, as a group, was to have a higher view, what we call the 30,000-foot view, versus getting down in the weeds. And we have had council, get in the weeds a little too much instead of using our town manager, since that's our form of government.
Yeah, sure.
Let's provide the direction, and then get out of the way. What do you think? I mean, is that?
I'm in 100% agreement, and I know that I heard the stories of previous town councils or previous mayors that would have a tendency of micromanaging the town manager, and also would at times, I think it's inadvertent, but would usurp the town manager and go directly to a department head, right? And it puts those department heads in a very awkward situation because they don't work for council. Department heads don't work for council. They work for the town manager. And so it happened a couple times when I was the interim manager, and I would have a private conversation with a council member and I explained it to them. Oh, and they understood. They understood the necessity of it. But to your point and to your question, I do think it's very critical that the town council recognizes that the town manager, in essence, is a CEO of a $50 million operation. And you set the tone and the direction and the strategic guidance and vision for how you want the operations to go, and you demand that town manager execute it. If that town manager doesn't execute it, you fire the town manager. Right?
If they'll say it's not who you hire, it's who you fire.
That's right. And so a lot of the times when council gets in the weed in issues, it's because they haven't really sought out or thought through a better process for getting things done. And I can tell you, I've had several meetings with the current town manager, Stephen Hicks. I hope you have him on soon.
He's coming. I said, I'll give you some time to get your feet on the ground. And he said, after the first of the year, we'll get together.
Yeah, he seems
like you're really...
just a super impressive impressive guy. Makes me feel inadequate in so many
I
ways.
just hope you didn't
Yeah.
ruin him now.
No, I haven't. No, he'd been shadowing him, and of course his experience is just a vast experience in various, public works director for a large
Right.
organization. I think he had 600 employees as a public works director, and so he's an engineer, and he picks up very, very quickly on things. So, I'm real pleased.
And he's got some nice kids.
Yeah, great daughters.
I watched the little video.
I met him right after the snow. Stephen and I drove around. We drove through all the streets in town together after the snowstorm to see how the plowing was going,
Right.
and I met his daughters that day.
Yeah. So let's go some things that you think you've got accomplished in your tenure as either as mayor or manager. What's some things that stick out that you can?
I think
feel
there's
we
several. I think it's several
positive.
things. I think overall, from an overarching perspective, is that we got things done. Meaning we identified items in the budget that we appropriated the money for it. We got the RFPs out. We got the bids out. The procurement officer, Alyssa Scott, just an extraordinary asset. She has a master's degree and has many designations in procurement. Don't hold me to the exact numbers, but I think in 2019 she issued 18 RFQs requests, and then in fiscal year 2020 she issued 48. So I mean the pace and the tempo. So that was one thing I think we got accomplished. Also the EDA. The EDA scandal, we filed suit. We have a placeholder in place. We're not spending an extraordinary amount of money in legal fees right now. So we have a plan with regards to how we hope to recoup some money. So I think having that direction set is important. Also, I think the most critical thing is infrastructure. In my opinion, this council in place until the end of the year. One thing I think their legacy will be is it was a council of getting infrastructure projects started and accomplished. The I&I issue, just extraordinary the amount of inflows that we have into our storm system, and this just didn't happen overnight.
Well, they've been talking about it for 20 years.
Well, that's just it. They've been talking about it for 20 years, and so this council. Decided to, grab the bull by the horns and actually invest in it. And we have. We've invested $3 million. You'll see a lot of work over the next year, 18 months. We did a lot of smoke testing. We cambered the lines. We've started replacing.
Even Town Hall failed the smoke test.
Yeah, so that was that was one of my more embarrassing moments. Thanks for taking it up, Mike. I appreciate
I've got video.
that. Yeah. So one of the storm drains didn't have water in it, and sure enough, smoke came right up through the building.
That's what happened.
That happened. So it was good. And I think that infrastructure, getting things done. The a couple areas that I feel I didn't. I'll say failed, or I wish I could have. I wish we could have gotten better traction on the Afton Inn and getting that moved sooner.
It looks like it's starting to move.
I think we're close. I
yeah.
think we're very close. I'm hoping to have that. That'll be Stephen Hicks's baby here soon. And then the overall redevelopment of town business recovery efforts. I think we did a very good job with recovery efforts. We hit the ground running on that. So there's a few things. The Afton Inn was one area. Overall, communications, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, I think I'm happy that I recognized the problem. We needed a better public information officer. We assigned someone as a public information officer. They've set the foundation over the last year for how to manage information, how to get information in, get information out, how to respond in a more clear, concise way, messaging. So on the good side, I recognized the problem, I think, but it took a lot of effort and time for all of us to figure it out. What is it like? We never really had it before. Government by and based upon my experience, government doesn't really do a good job at communicating with the public.
You're not the only ones, right?
It's now in this day and age with social media and, the 30-second sound bites, growing up, I know we can remember where you used to watch the news between 6 and 7 o'clock,
Exactly.
and that was it.
That was it.
Over with,
done, move on.
But then they morphed into this 24-hour news cycle, which created all this editorializing, and then morphed into social media, and now it's just we're information overload. Right. And so I think the town's still trying to figure that out. Overall, I think the public, my perception at least, is the public thinks the town government's doing a pretty good job. Based upon this, the last election and the candidates that ran, the winning candidates, they were the least vocal criticizing town government and town staff, and many of them had a very large margin of victory. So I think overall the message is getting out, but there's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, there's still there's a negative factions out there that want to see the worst in everything. I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
Sure.
And I know that the staff, one of the greatest overall experiences I had as interim manager and interim town and interim mayor was the interaction I had with staff. I just was. As a private citizen, you don't engage with staff a lot, right? You may engage with a typical citizen, may engage with one of the tellers, paying a bill, may engage if they have to put a fence up. But I'm engaging with these individuals on a daily basis, right? And I'm engaging with them in all different aspects and all different ways. I was just blown away with the character of quality of character that we have, the dedication to the job. We had a water main break just yesterday. The shift ended at 3 o'clock. At 3:30, we had a massive line break. These guys and gals worked until 9 p.m., sopping wet in the mud, and you go by and spot check on them, and the morale is great, and they're just happy to be doing the job for our community. And I mean, that's legitimate. I mean, that's not fake. That's not fluff. Right. Last Christmas Eve, we had a water line break, and they had 12 people work Christmas Eve through the morning into Christmas Day. And the refuse trucks drivers. And so there's a lot of those areas that I got to witness firsthand, and that was by far, that was the greatest experience I had, was being able to interact with the staff.
I seen you there on the back of the garbage truck. That
was a photo op.
Didn't pick up too many cans, did you?
No, I didn't pick up any cans. No, those guys, they do great work.
Well,
and I know
think of our unsung heroes. We don't really realize we have a lot of people that provide services to our community.
No idea. Yeah. And it's and they do it, one thing when COVID hit, that whole pandemic that we're in and still are in to some degree, that was just a complete, no one's experienced it before, right? And so, we were having daily meetings and at the forefront, and everyone stepped up. We had people that I was their job. For instance, I mentioned Alyssa. Her job is procurement. Well, then I said your job is also going to be recovery efforts. Small business recovery efforts. So I need you to become the expert on everything small business recovery. So on top of your normal job, I need you to continually research this. And I had Alfredo, who was a planner. Mm-hmm. Alfredo does planning. Okay, Alfredo, I need you every day to search out every single thing related to the pandemic and give me a morning briefing by 9 o'clock. So, I had all these individuals working additional duties during that time period because we had no idea. We're at March 12th, we had no idea what to expect. We were only being told all these things. People are dying in Europe all over the place, and had no idea.
Down in the streets.
It was just out of. Literally have a meeting with the police chief and say, what are contingency plans for deaths? Too many deaths at the hospital. But unfortunately, it hasn't turned out to be as bad as they initially.
Right. Well, one of the things that I don't think people realize too is that you did was you took our infrastructure personnel and split them up.
Oh yeah, right.
So that our services could continue if a bunch of people got
Yeah.
sick. I mean, I think that's one of your plans.
Yeah,
did.
that's true. And matter of fact, we've gone back to that based upon some outbreaks we've recently had. When you look at the town of Front Royal is a little different than the county of Warren, right? The county of Warren has some services. Town of Front Royal has very critical services:
Right.
water, sewer, electric,
right?
picking up trash, refuse,
Right.
right? So very quickly we split the shifts because if one shift were to come down with the coronavirus and knock out that whole shift, I had to have someone else to put in place. So if that happened, we also had contingency plans in place that all of the critical services now, and the citizens should know this, we have temporary cots, we have blankets, and we have food at all these critical locations that they have to lock in place and not interact with the public at all. They'll lock in place for 30 days. We also increased the amount of inventory on hand. Typically, in some of these critical services, we would have a 30 to a 60-day inventory. Very quickly, we upped that to a 6-month inventory. And frankly, it's paid off. I just got a phone call last month that some of the chemicals that are being used at the wastewater treatment plant were on a 30-day or 60-day backlog compared to what's customary.
Right.
So, all those little things we had to work
Like
through.
trying to buy toilet paper, right?
Well, there you go. Perfect example. Perfect example. So we would have our list of our massive list, and every morning we'd go through our list of supplies, and we'd go through our personnel check and go through our operation check, and we fared very well during that time.
And a lot
period.
of these services take the water and the sewer and our electric. The staffs aren't that large, so you lose 4 or 5 people, you could really be in a hurt.
And it's not so much losing them because they contract the virus.
Right.
It was losing because if you're in close contact with
Sure.
someone, all of a sudden now you're gone for 3 days. Then you have to get tested. And at the time, testing was going 5 to 7 days.
Exactly.
So now that person's out of operations. The other thing that we did was we set up, and I have to thank Todd Jones, Director of IT, for this. Probably within first 5 days of the executive order, we went out and purchased the capability of how we call them the Red Box. But the Red Box is hooked up to an individual's home network, and they can plug their computer in, they can plug their phone in from their work line, and operate as if that's their office. So we had several critical people, I think 12 critical people, that we were able to keep them in their home, keep them locked in their home, give them strict orders, you're not to go out and intermingle with the public during this time period. And we had them answering phones. We had them dispatching for public works. So we kept the operations going during that time period.
Right. Well, there's a lot of planning that goes on in running an organization, and government's no different. I mean, you have 150 employees or something. I can remember I had 55 at one time, located in 5 different states. I can tell you, it's a lot of work.
Yeah. We had an org chart of 177 employees. Now we're about 164.
Right.
We've been able to streamline some areas that I think and shift that money that we've saved from personnel expenses, shift it over into capital and infrastructure and things that have been put on the wayside. I look at paving as an example. We haven't had a significant paving plan for years in this community.
Because putting paint on the road doesn't really help a lot. Does it?
Exactly. So I know that's something that Stephen Hicks asked me. He goes, if there's one thing you would advise me moving forward, what would that be? And I said, focus on the beautification of our community.
Exactly.
And that's something I talked with the directors. Every staff meeting at the top of the page, I had in big and bold excellence in everything. And I asked staff, I said, no matter if it's the individual painting a curb or it's the person putting down asphalt, he goes, make sure they do it right and do it well and take pride in what they do. And I tell you, I think that, beating that drum and just pushing that down to the lowest common denominator, I think it's paid off.
Yeah. And we talked before, you have to go out and inspect what you expect. And if you expect the excellence, you'll get it.
That's right.
But if you don't, and just assuming that people are going to do, as people in general, we kind of do the path of least resistance,
Yeah, true.
And sometimes we got to be, prodded along a little bit to be encouraged to do the right thing. And
Exactly.
I think every organization has that. And you have some good employees like Mark here. If I had 3 or 4 more of him, I'd be in good shape. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's true. It's hard to find good people that want to do it. And you have people in the lowest jobs to the highest jobs that, you always say, well, it's just a low job. No, there's people that really enjoy what they do. And
Every person on the team is vital. Every single one.
Right,
They're
right.
part of that element. They're part of
Right.
that unit.
That's what I try to tell people. I said, we kind of judge things on a bell curve. Brain surgeons and refuge workers.
Yeah, right.
But try to do without either one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
New York tried that one time. It didn't work out too good for them.
Well, I tell you, I think leaving here, I feel confident that the proud moments I have going to Martin's,
Right.
As an example, and I went to Martin's several weeks ago, and a town public works employee came up to me, and thanked me for various things, and a citizen in the same day, a citizen I had no idea who she was, thanked me for certain things that were done. And so those are the rewarding. That's it's
Make up for all those times they were throwing eggs
yeah,
at you.
and it is what it is, and I understand politics as well as
Sure.
anyone, but that's when what you're doing is having purpose and
Exactly.
getting results. And so are there things that I could have handled differently? Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Hindsight's always 20/20.
I'm sure. Should I have held my tongue a little bit more times? Probably. Should I have said more times? Maybe.
Right.
But all in all, I look back on this chapter of my life as a great experience, and it was a great and duty felt. I mean, I just felt like I was put in this situation at that
Sure.
moment in time,
Opportunity, take it.
and just help the community.
When opportunity knocks, you just have to open the door.
Yeah, Mike, I when I got out of the service, I remember having a conversation with my wife, and she said, "Where do you want to live?" And she said, "I'd like to move to Front Royal, where you grew up." She's from Winchester, so she knew the area. And in 2000, I bought the home I grew up in. My parents built a house right beside me, so for 14 years we were very close neighbors. I mean, this is my home, and it's now
Sure.
my wife. I've been successful in my life, and I've said, "Do you want to move to a different country, a different city, or a different place?" She goes, "Nope." She goes, "This is the home. I love Front Royal." She
No
said,
place better than right where you're at. is
and
it?
it's my children's home, and so who wouldn't want to help their community?
Exactly.
So
going forward now, you're on another day, you'll be private citizen again.
Yeah.
And you're going to go back into your other business, or you're going to launch off to something new?
No. My business partners have been very patient with me. No, they have been very understanding. Candidly, the pandemic probably helped in that regard, because it really slowed down our business ventures, and so they're very excited to get me back working with them, and so no, I'm looking forward to getting back to the private sector.
Well, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So I do know that we've butted head many times.
Yeah, of course.
But I can accept it. I'm like you. I look at it
Iron
and say,
sharpens iron, Mike.
Exactly what it does, and we always go away with an agreement of
Yeah.
some sort. I think the one thing I know that you took a lot of heat over was tourism.
Yeah.
You took a lot of heat on that, but it seems to be coming around, and it's a slow moving boat.
Yeah.
Because what they say, you can't turn a boat on a dime, on a cruise ship. So, but it
Yeah,
seems
that's a really good example. So that's probably an example where I'm a doer, right? And sometimes in government, the reason government moves at the pace it moves,
RFQs.
is because you've got to think things out, and you got to overly communicate, and you have to overly do this. It was clear very early in my interim role as manager that the way we were managing that whole department, as far as the amount of money that was being spent on that and what we were getting in return, it was very clear that there was a better way to do it. And there was probably a great example of I am 100% confident the direction the town is going and the county is going now is the right direction. I'm just as confident as I can be on anything, is because the quality of the organization is coming in to actually target and market and convert our our operations, our tourism marketing operations from the 19th century, the 20th century, to modern day technology and capabilities and outreach. Right now we're on camera. Sure. And we're going to be showing the live stream and whatnot, and you're going to be social media, etc. Well, 25 years ago, we didn't have any of that.
That's right. Exactly.
Didn't have that.
Right.
So taking our operations and being able to outreach, we have, I said this, I talked to two of the new council members recently during their orientation, and I said, congratulations. And he goes, well, thank you. I said, no, not just congratulations for your victory, but congratulations because I believe you're going to be on the town council during the greatest boom and the most advancement of our community probably in the last 50 years. I really think the next 4 to 5 years in our town is going to be extraordinary. I think real estate values are going to skyrocket, and it's already happening. I think our business, small business efforts, our recovery efforts, the marketing outreach, the tourism outreach, if the town ends up getting its own EDA and getting that formulated and being able to focus on the redevelopment of our town and redevelopment of empty storefronts. And we have a large parcel of land, 700-800 acres, that's undeveloped, that's in town property. Get that done right. I think the next 5 years is going to be a great time to live in our community.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, going forward, anything else you want the council to jump right on? We're going to twist Steve's arm and see.
No, sir. I'm a firm believer that
you've left the plan intact.
That I am not I'm not an ear whisperer.
Oh, okay.
I don't like people to whisper in my ear.
Right.
I don't whisper in other people's ears. I very seldom give unsolicited advice. And I've intentionally told Stephen, this is you're the captain of the helm. You guide the ship. You take it. And so I'm here to answer any questions they have. But no, I think this council, the new council that's in, I think it's a very diverse council. A lot of different skill sets on council. Like I said, I just think it's going to be a booming next 5 years. I just think this community is a lot of progress is going to be made in the next 5 years.
Right. Because you're right, though. I think going forward, but if you expect that what you've done in the past, you're going to continue to do.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, no,
and I
that's
think
right.
we've had this. Take it as an opportunity to retool your thinking, retool your business, retool everything, family life, your church life, everything,
That's right.
and refocus on the basics again, and look at what's going to be successful moving forward, and step out there and take that first step, because I think you're right. We're just at the beginning now.
Yeah.
A whole new, I want to say an industrial revolution, but it's going to be a revolution going forward. Business is going to be different. Schools will be different.
Exactly.
Our government's going to be different.
Yeah, I do
And
agree.
I
I
think we
agree
just
with
need
that.
to adapt and keep moving, because I think you're right. There'll be a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, but you know what's great is student history, and that's the resiliency of the American spirit. That's
Right.
who we are.
That's right.
That's who we.
Give us a challenge. Get out of the way. I can make
get
it
out,
work.
get
right?
out of the way, and that's what I think. Talking with council members and the vision they have, and it's just it's exciting to see. I'm very very excited, very optimistic for the next few years. Yeah.
Matt, I really appreciate you stepping up and taking those roles. I know you got beat up a lot.
Yeah.
And but you were pretty thick-skinned.
Sure.
I give you credit
Sure,
for that.
yeah.
And you didn't lose your temper too much, not in public anyway.
Yeah,
I'm sure you went
yeah.
home. And kudos to your
Yeah,
wife
I'm
and family
sure.
for taking that brunt
Yeah.
of kicking the cat, so to speak.
I'm sure
you know.
there were Sundays that I had to do a little more repenting than others.
Yes. So, but again, anyone that wants to step up and do community work, I think the rewards are quite rewarding, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly.
And to do that, we do have a council seat coming that's going to be open, but you only have till tomorrow to get your
Yeah.
application in. But then we'll be having a special election, I think, next
November.
November. So there's a lot of opportunities to serve on council if that's what somebody thinks they want to do. But we have a lot of committees and boards that work, that we're always looking for people to fill those seats.
Yeah, exactly. And it's and I would stress that it is very rewarding to be part of the community. Some of the cave people or citizens against virtually everything.
Right.
Or, you know,
Right.
some of these individuals haven't really volunteered on anything in our community.
No.
Whether it's Little League or soccer or whether it's a board or a commission. And so, you know, I think once you get involved in your community, I mean, my words, I mean, we live here. You know, who
Sure.
doesn't want to see? That's the most remarkable thing. You know, I or council would get accused of this or this or that. Well, who wants to destroy?
Exactly.
Who wants to destroy something in our community? You live here,
Right.
right? So get involved. We do have openings. I have openings on the Planning Commission and openings on various boards and commissions. We're always looking. Matter of fact, we have to beat the streets sometimes,
Right.
shake the bushes to
Right.
get people to apply. Get involved. Make our community better for the future generations. That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Again, Matt, I appreciate you coming in,
Hey,
talking
thanks, Mike.
to us, and hopefully we'll come in a few months. We'll talk about wealth management or something.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Talk about something new. And again, I appreciate everything you've done, and thanks again for everything.
Great.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Mike. Appreciate
Thanks a
it.
lot.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.